Louisa Badaracco, and this is Bridge Prep. My guest today is Kathy Ann Hart, the Executive Director of the Winchester Multicultural Network, an advocacy group for diversity based in Winchester, Massachusetts. A graduate of Harvard Law School and a former professor at Northeastern University School of Law, she was previously the director of the AIDS Action Committee of Massachusetts and an associate at the law firm Ropes and Gray. Welcome, Kathy Ann. You are a graduate of Harvard Law School, where you were the student attorney of Harvard Legal Aid Bureau, and you co-founded the Harvard Legal Aid Bureau's Diversity Task Force. Can you pinpoint the moment when you felt law was your calling?
Yeah, it's weird. I grew up in a family and in a culture where to be smart was to do a few things that were all related to the sciences. If you were smart on the island of Trinidad, you went down the science track and you became a doctor or an engineer, or if you happened to be so unfortunate to pick option number 3, you became a dentist. So law wasn't really something that my family sort of saw me doing, but I remember, and actually I wrote about this in my essay for being admitted to law school, a personal statement. I remember having a teacher in my kindergarten years, Miss Austin, and she said to my mom was sharing with her, every parent thinks their son is very bright or whatever. And Miss Austin said, Miss Hart, that child is not going to be a doctor. She's going to be a lawyer. So I think somewhere at 5, she sensed that I was going to be a lawyer. I'm not so sure what I was doing at 5 that led this lovely woman to think I was going to practice law. But that's what she said. So I think somewhere outside of me, others saw it. And then later on, I think for myself, I just developed this strong passion for justice and fair play, and decided that the law would be kind of the avenue I would pursue to make things right in the world.
Sure. So the seeds were sown at an early age.
Yes. Yes.
Now, at what moment did you feel specifically diversity and social change were calling your name?
Yeah, it's weird. So similarly, I think much of my professional life, I think for many of us, maybe if you sort of dig deep enough, our professional selves are kind of informed by our personal selves and vice versa. I grew up on this island, which people may or may not know is a super diverse place. Trinidad has a population, a pretty large East Indian population, a pretty large West African population, a smaller Chinese population, a small Portuguese population, a small French population. And the way in which folks live together in that space is to really share each other's cultures in a way that's a little different than in the United States. So for example, we have things like Trinidadian Chinese food. We have things like Trinidadian Indian food. And then we have just about every major religious or cultural holiday that you can think of is noted on a calendar in Trinidad, and everybody takes the day off and celebrates each other's festivals. So it's a real celebration of individual cultures in Trinidad as a collective sense of those cultures. And so I think, kind of the way in which I thought about multiculturalism came from my understanding of being a Trinidadian. And so I think much of what led me when I came to the United States at 15 to kind of go, whoa, this culture is totally different. All of a sudden, I only have one box to check. I can check African American or Black or nothing else. Like nothing else applies to me. Whereas in Trinidad, there was a box called mixed that you could check because they knew people were mixed. The cultures were mixing. The ethnicities were mixing. And so I think for me coming to the United States gave me an opportunity to bring for myself personally and then professionally that Trinidadian sense of living in multiple cultures.
Got it. Talk to us about your transition from lawyer in the trenches, advocating for clients in family law and housing and bankruptcy cases, to running the AIDS Action Committee, with its budgetary and operational staffing and year-round fundraising needs. What management resources did you draw on to support you during this transition?
I was so fortunate at AIDS Action. I mean, so fortunate. And at the time, you kind of know you're lucky, but you don't know that you're so fortunate. So when I started at AIDS Action, I started as a part-time staff attorney, and then I sort of worked my way up into a position that I created. It wasn't there before, called Assistant General Counsel. And then I became director of the site in Cambridge, which has a pharmacy access program, which folks may know more. Late folks may know it more as a needle exchange program. And it had a homelessness drop-in shelter space for folks to come in and hang out during the day. And so I had really great folks who were leaders in that organization who were directly mentoring me and indirectly mentoring me. I would say the general counsel back then, Denise McWilliams, was really instrumental in allowing me to kind of soar and create like a new position for myself and to try out my leadership muscles. I created a whole new training program for the legal department. And then the very person at the very head of that organization at the time, Rebecca Haig, was the president and CEO, have saw potential in this young whippersnapper who was always sort of challenging things in the organization by saying, well, this doesn't run efficiently enough, or this is not fair for our clients, or here are ways in which we can do right by more people in Massachusetts who have HIV/AIDS or who are at risk of getting HIV/AIDS. And so she didn't just hear me as complaining and silenced me. She said, this gal has some ideas and she's willing to do the work. So, and gave me the opportunity to run with some of those ideas. Or at times said, whoa, Kimosabe, we're going to slow down on that. That's a wonderful idea. We don't have the resources to do it. Or, you're going to need you're going to need to think that through a lot more before we can even start that process. And so I had people like that above me. And I had folks who I supervised who were game to sort of go along and try new things and, pick up pieces when pieces fell apart at the site and, sort of dive in literally when people would overdose at our site. So I was really supported both from the top and by the people who I supervised. It was really kind of I was really very, very fortunate.
And how has your law degree helped with running an organization?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, I was talking to some young folks the other day at my daughter's high school. She just graduated from Cambridge Rindge in Latin, and she took a criminal justice class there. And many of the young people there, they had questions about going to law school and, should they go to law school and why and that sort of thing. And I always say the same thing to people. You go to law school if you want to be a lawyer. You go to law school if you want to be a lawyer. That's sort of in hindsight. But I think currently, if I were thinking about my own experiences, because I can't go back and undo it, right? So think about my own experience. I think law school provided me a few things. One is the management of people. And I say that because when you're managing a case, you're essentially managing yourself. You're managing the other party, the other attorney, maybe if the other side has representation. You could be managing people in the form of an institution like the Social Security Administration or a court, like the clerks at the court or the justices at the court or the bailiffs at the court. So you're always kind of managing people. And I'm thinking about how to best present yourself and your client to these people such that you get the best services possible. And then, law school and the practice of law teaches you how to manage lots of paper. Folks may know or have some understanding that, being in law school and being a lawyer involves reading a lot of things, taking a lot of disparate pieces of data and putting it together in a way that makes sense, whether that's for a judge or for a clerk or for some administrative entity. And I think going to law school, and maybe this is true of many other disciplines that I wouldn't know, but certainly going to law school helps with one's understanding of how to critically assess many things, critically assess a situation, critically assess risk, and come up with ways in which you can mitigate that harm. So I think all those things are really important when you're running an organization. You want to run a strong organization that can navigate people. You want to run an organization that sort of monitors itself and its filings and all that sort of legal and business stuff for managing the paper of your organization. And of course, you want to run an organization that's not prone to a lot of outside harm. So you want to make sure that you're doing your work in line with your mission that makes you the strongest possible organization at least risk in the outside world.
Great. Now, you're currently the director of the Winchester Multicultural Network. I'm wondering what the biggest challenges and then rewards have been of working in pro bono.
Yeah. So I love the work here at the Multicultural Network. And again, we've been really lucky. We've been well funded. We've gotten a $1 million grant in the last year. When I came on, we just gotten a $100,000 grant to fund my position. We have great donors and supporters within the town, including the town itself and the schools. So our challenge has been how to manage our blessings, really. We've had so much given to us by virtue of us being as reputable as we are, as well liked as we are in this town. And so we've had kind of an embarrassment of riches and sort of how to manage that. That's sort of been one challenge. The other challenge has been in this particular organization, even though it's been around for 20 some odd years, it's been around as a volunteer-led and run organization. And now we're transitioning to a time where this organization is going through its next life cycle, I would say. It's graduating, let's say, much like my daughter did. It's graduating. And so it's going to go into another part of its life cycle where there will be staff running the organization with the assistance of a board of volunteers. It's a different structure, different organizational structure. So that's a challenge for us, is to figure out, who's making decisions, how, why, when, who has the power to make those decisions, who legally should be making them, given what the role of a governing board is, given what the role of staff of a nonprofit organization is. And I think, sort of the challenge just about for every nonprofit organization is, while we feel really blessed right now to have all the stuff that we have, all the money that we have, all the support that we have, is how do we maintain that and grow it? So always a challenge is to sort of be aware of what might be on the horizon, and to stay ahead of what, stay abreast of what's coming ahead.
And can you elaborate on what it's like to work with a 20-member board? What's the give and take with managing ideas with an accomplished team of that size?
Oh boy, I don't think we have enough time. They are incredible. They are incredible and amazing, and many of them are retired from fields like electrical engineering, or I have a retired headmaster of an independent school on my board. I have a psychologist, but really smart, pediatrician, really smart, committed people who are very invested and passionate about the work that we do. That's a plus. And then sometimes it can be a challenge, as you sort of hinted at in your question, because we have 20 people wanting to go possibly 20 different ways, could be 40 or 60. And then we have me trying to herd them like cats to help sort of guide us all towards the mission and and make sure that everyone feels heard and appreciated and wanted within the organization. And so the challenge is sort of twofold. One is to keep people engaged, and the second part is to keep people engaged such that we don't have 60 people engaged in some sort of messy organizational process, so that folks on the outside are going, what are you doing? How does this support your mission? Wait, who's making that decision? Oh, wait, who made that decision? Oh, wait, how much did we spend on that? So it's been a sort of twofold, right? We have all these people and all this money, all these resources to support what they do, and then we have to be mindful about shepherding it.
Got it. Now, in your work at the Multicultural Network, what have you found organizations and government don't understand about the importance of incorporating diversity, and how do you reach them? How do you convey your message?
I think the first thing that one discovers when one is doing this work is that everyone supports it. Actually, everyone supports it. Every sort of good-hearted soul believes in the value of diversity, and if they don't, they usually just shut their mouths. Everybody pretty much is talking about, oh yes, it's a laudable mission. You're doing good work. And then the challenge is, how do we put the dollars behind that? How do we say, yes, we support it, and yes, we support it with our money. Yes, we support it with our time if we don't have money. Yes, we support it with our passion by, coming out and supporting events and being there and attending them. And so the real challenge is to have the will. The political will is what of my international human rights law professors used to say about human rights. Having the will to carry out that passion is the real challenge.
Got it. Now, CSR, impact investing, venture philanthropy, those have been buzzwords for several years now, and they seem to be picking up even more steam. I'm wondering, do you think these initiatives are here to stay, or are they just a fad? What do you see are the driving forces behind their popularity, and how are you capitalizing on them?
Yeah, I think I was talking to a friend of mine a few years ago who's French, and I think she lived in Paris, if I remember correctly, in France. And she was a documentarian. She made documentaries, and she's very interested in her time here in the United States in documenting the generosity of Americans as she saw it as an outsider. And one of the things she commented on was how she saw it different in France, how she saw people living differently in France, as far as how they gave of their money in particular, their time probably less so, to nonprofits and to non-governmental causes. And she found that fascinating. I think there's something in the American spirit to be kind of charitable and generous. And I guess not that corporations are people, they're part of the American spirit as far as people are concerned, according to the Supreme Court. And so I hope, I mean, maybe the cynic in me would say, oh, this is a fad, and, maybe it's going to go away at some point and we shouldn't rely on it. And maybe that's true. I mean, having a diversity of resources funding one's organization is very helpful. But I do think that for the most part, given that founding, that observation that my French friend made about Americans and their passion for charity and their giving spirit, it's just another piece of that. It's another way in which that is being seen now. And actually, we have benefited as an organization from that. Much of our grant funding comes from the Cummings Foundation, which is a family foundation the family is committed to giving away all their resources where they pass away. I believe it's Bill and Melinda Gates who started that idea, but they're very committed to doing that, and so we've been a beneficiary.
Great. Now we have time for just one more question. To sort of come full circle, I'm wondering what inspires you today to keep up your efforts in social change? What underlying motivations drive you in your day-to-day work in promoting diversity?
Well, it's selfish, really. It's not. it's not so magnanimous or benevolent. It's very selfish. I have a multi-ethnic daughter. I'm a multi-ethnic person. Many of my friends and family members come from all sorts of parts of the world, like United Kingdom and Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Trinidad and the U.S. And so personally, I'm very committed to living in a world where all of those people feel warmly welcomed and included within every facet of society. And so what keeps me going in this work is that if I'm not doing this work, I won't feel like I'm actually leaving behind a legacy for my friends and family, that they can actually live in a world where they are adding value and feeling included. So why I do it, very selfish.
Well, that's great. We are happy to have you. Kathy Ann, thank you so much for speaking to us today, and we wish you all the best in your efforts.
Great. Thank you so much, Lisa.